Thank you for attending our Questline webinar, Product Innovation, Power Your Business. My name is Levi Sanchez, and I am the host of today's webinar. We will be sending everyone a follow-up email within the next couple of days that will include a PDF of the PowerPoint presentation materials and the playback link of today's recording. Before we begin, we wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen are multiple application widgets you can use. All the widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your desktop space. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A widget. We will try to answer these during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. Some networks cause slides to advance more slowly than others, so logging off your VPN is recommended. If your slides are behind, pushing F5 on your keyboard will refresh the page. You can find additional answers to some common technical issues located in the Webinar Tips and Help widget at the bottom of your screen. We will be conducting polls during the presentation, and we would appreciate your participation. I will open our first poll now. Please be aware that you are not the only participant today. The name of other attendees are not being shown for privacy reasons. Now, let me introduce today's presenter. With nearly 15 years of product management experience, Questline's Assistant Vice President of Product Innovation, Kurt Hansen, has developed one-of-a-kind solutions for many unique industries. From the Defense Department to the bright lights of casino gaming, Kurt leads Questline's newly created Product Innovation Department, helping devise solutions to meet the evolving needs of our energy utility clients. Mr. Hansen earned a Bachelor's of Science in Physics from the University of Virginia and completed his MBA from Arizona State University. And now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Kurt, who will get things started for us.
All right, thanks everybody for joining today. I do apologize, I have a bit of a cold, so I will do every effort I can to hit the cough button before I cough, but it probably is going to happen. Hopefully it won't be too loud in your ears. So today we wanted to kind of go through two big topics that are constantly coming up in our conversations with clients, and that's really kind of content marketing as a whole, and then specifically around segmentation. We're going to take a bit of a dive into one of the products that we just rolled out this year around Power Your Business, or around small business. We call it Power Your Business. So the idea being that giving you some segmentation tools, this kind of serves as an example of a good way to mirror your overall project or program objectives with your segmentation planning and your segmentation strategy, and layering on top of that content marketing and delivery of that content to build that long-term relationship with your clients. So to start with, content marketing strategy. It really is where the interests of the customer as well as your interests really overlap, and it needs to be done in a very systematic and strategic approach that really focuses on adding value and relevant content to what the users are looking for. In terms of customer segmentation, really interested to see where that is on your roadmap from a customer engagement strategy perspective. Is that something you're currently doing? Is that something you have plans in place to do so? Or is that something that you really aren't terribly concerned about? Again, content marketing and segmentation really go hand in hand, because with content marketing, you're really trying to build that long-term relationship with your customers. And it isn't just an individual promotion or an individual informational email about a program. It's really building that arc of how you're going to communicate and how you're going to strategically engage with your customers. And you really want to provide them as much useful information as you can, and it really is trying to find the information that they are particularly looking for, and the problems or the issues, the questions that that particular group of customers has dealing with your utility. And the better you can target them, the better you can hit them with really pertinent information to the issue that they're having or the program information that they're looking for, you really can boost that overall customer satisfaction. You'll certainly reduce the engagement and the call center demand, but you really can help drive your overall program objectives. Again, layering over that content marketing strategy is really, it isn't an individual email about a particular program. It's really building that trust up with the customer, building that relationship up with the customer in order to, when you have a program, show how it can benefit them and how it can target what they need. And that is really what is going to push your conversion rates much higher than really really just program-specific content and program-specific marketing. And a big part of this is the overall research that goes into a lot of the content. Now here at Questline, we have 3,000 assets in our content library. And again, that's really built up so that there's a breadth and a depth of content so that you can build an arc of a story and have series of videos that you can engage your customers over time as opposed to just a single informational video. And you can build up use talent in those videos to, again, kind of build up an additional relationship with your customer to really help drive home those overall program objectives, whether they're energy efficiency or electric vehicles, demand response, whatever you're looking to do, is building that arc of engaging content that really targets what they're looking for. And so we go through a big process here at Questline to create our content, and it really does start with research. We have a lot of partnerships, DEFG, SECC, where we're getting that industry-wide research. Obviously, the technical expertise and the engineering expertise is already in-house, and then we take that, kind of boil it all together into the actual content creation process. We've got a video shop, and it really is trying to make the content as informational but also as engaging as possible. We all remember, back in school, the more engaging a teacher was and the more entertaining ways that they introduced those topics, we all learned them better. And it's no different with your content marketing. You want it to be engaging. It doesn't necessarily need to be slapstick funny or all like animation based or anything like that, but it really does need to be educational and engaging and entertaining, and you're going to find a lot better conversion rates and a lot better engagement with your content when it is truly creative and truly engaging with the end user. The technical review is a big part of what we do here as well. Again, we have engineers on staff, and it isn't just does it look good, does it sound good, does it tell a story. It is that story the right level of technical depth? Now, content that goes out to our C&I customers is going to be at a much deeper technical level probably than will go out to our residential customer piece of content. But the appropriate level of technical expertise is in that educational piece of content, and we're using it in a way to really drive the message forward with your users. Segmentation. Again, I get a lot of questions around segmentation from our customers, and it really is, well, how many segments do I need? And that isn't really the way to look at segmentation. It's really how many segments can you deal with? So you can cut your customer base, and that's probably not the right way to phrase it, but you can slice and dice your customer base into as small segment groups as possible, and you can have hundreds and hundreds of segments. But can you do anything with them? And so it's very similar to like when we're designing our poll questions during a webinar. Is the answer going to be actionable for us, right? So adding a 5th or 6th or 12th segment, is there something I can actually do with that? Or is the response that I get from that segment going to give me information that I can actually act on that's different than segment 11 or segment 10? And so a lot of times when you go through a process to define your segments, you end up getting out to 10, 12, 15, and then you really kind of have to start stacking them back on top of each other to say, can I actually do anything different with this segment here than I can with this, segment 2 over here? Or in reality, I'm going to be sending them the same message. There's really no way that I can pull apart that message and make it unique enough to actually go through the process of dividing that out. What you see here, I sit on the SECC Research Committee, and there's a rate design study going on right now. I believe it actually got released a few weeks ago. So this was the residential segmentation that we used as part of that study, you see it's divided out into 4 segments here. And again, you can say, well, residential customers, I could cut them up way, into way many more segments. But again, from a rate design perspective, this was what met the needs of the study in terms of how can I action differently the segments. And again, lining them up to your goals. Just because I can get a different message to a different segment, am I trying to drive them to a different behavior, or am I trying to convert them to a different program or not? If I'm trying to convert them to, if I've got 4 programs I'm trying to send people to, if I don't have a different program to send a different segment to, I might as well group them with an existing segment instead of just doing it for the sake of dividing out your customer base. So it really does have to layer in with your strategy and layer in with the data that you have. And we obviously hear this a lot from our clients as well, is I don't have the data to slice my customers. And the reason I have small business as an example today is that's one of the hardest ones for you to get data on. And so what data do you need? And that's another place to start, is once you've done your segmentation model, if you need more data, you may very well have to go to your system people to figure out a way to get that data, or self-segmentation tools, which is kind of what we're going to talk about a little bit today. And so the next poll question is, does your utility actually use industry-specific content to target business customers, and really in particular small business customers? Sorry, for those of you that just joined, I have a cold, so I'm going to have to hit the cough button here every few minutes to step aside and cough. So bear with me. So what we did with our Power Your Business tool, and again, I'm using this really as an example of how you can use some interesting opportunities and tools to segment your groups. Now, we did it particularly here in the SMB space. There's no reason you couldn't apply this to any other customer segment that you're going to look at, be it residential, be it key accounts. You could apply a similar sort of tool and a similar sort of segmentation strategy to any of those segments. But small business is typically one of the hardest for utilities to engage with, and it's also one of them the hardest to understand really what industry they're actually in. You start looking at the key accounts level, they're much larger companies, they're national companies, you know where they belong from an industry perspective, but when you're looking at small businesses that are on a Gmail account or something like that, even looking at email addresses and stuff, can be really hard to segment out your small business community. And so we came up with the concept of really having them do it themselves and trying to drive them to conversion of a self-segmentation tool. So the idea really is that you're going to, with Power Your Business, you'd have a landing page, and we'll hop out and actually click through the tool here in a minute, but just kind of wanted to run through it, where we picked 10 industries, and again, you'll see what they are when we hop out to the tool. We looked across all of our small business customers and did kind of a cross-section and came to this list that there was the biggest amount of penetration with these industries. And again, you're never necessarily going to catch everybody. So we had a lot of discussion. Do we put another up there, things like that? Do we let people self-segment into the one that they think they closest align with? And that's really kind of where we ended up. But again, you could put 5 here. You could put 25 here. It's more of, do you have the content and do you have the engagement strategy to communicate with those other segments? And again, 10 seemed to be, from what the data perspective was and the content perspective, to be the right number for small business. So this was the next poll question, then we'll hop out to the tool. But it's, what type of small business support are you interested in? Are you looking for individual, specific content to communicate with individual industries, landing pages, banner ads, social media content and support, or overall email campaigns to try and drive conversion for your business customers? So I'm actually going to hop out to the tool now if this works. So you should be seeing the Power Your Business landing page. Again, this is white labeled. We use My Utility kind of as our white labeled brand. Anything you see here you would be able to customize. But again, for the sake of today's discussion, I really want you to just think of a self-segmentation tool that you could use in sort of any application or any customer area that you are targeting, be it C&I or residential. And again, any of these industries could completely, in this case, industries, and in other areas it might be, home type, is it renters or owners? Again, using this as a self-segmentation tool, the idea here is that they would go into each one of these individual pages and you would have targeted content around that industry or around that customer segment. Obviously the imagery for Power Your Business, we did 5 ways to save. Each individual segment has that minute-long video and targeted energy efficiency content around that industry, what's applicable to that individual industry, and then a customized case study for that industry. Now, we have national ones based on, again, either SECC research or other, Department of Energy sort of studies that we've put together a generic case study for each one of those industries in this space. But what we would encourage any customer to do would be have a more personalized one to somebody in their geographic area. Now we're actually in the process of rolling this out with somebody, and they had a local grocery chain that they had a white paper from, and so that gets swapped out with that, again, to just drive a little more connection to your geographic area. But the idea here is that you're giving that industry a kind of dedicated page to go that you can update that content specifically for them, and have any other, we call these snippets or sidebars, but these could be targeted to drive them back to your corporate site to convert them to a particular program or a state-level program for small business. I know there's a lot of those out there as well, where there's subsidies and other things to help them, maybe with conversions to more energy efficiency products, or just supplemental small business-related savings and aid programs that are at the state level. So again, you could target these to any sort of program promotion or opportunity that you as the utility were trying to drive. So again, I don't necessarily want to focus on particularly the small business. I want to kind of just talk the concept of self-segmentation. Now, we have a newsletter product as well that they would be able to opt into, at each individual page here. They would be able to opt into that newsletter product. And at the time, we may or may not have a totally segmented newsletter, but you would now have that, that person's account captured and the industry that they are associated with based on their self-selection. Again, really using this as an opportunity to start that dialogue. Is it going to be perfect? No. But again, having them self-select into the industry that they feel fits them the best is going to give you a really strong starting point to begin that targeted engagement with that customer. Sorry, I apologize. I had to cough there for a second. So again, there's targeted content here for each industry. We've got the 5 ways to save video. We've got a targeted case study, imagery, actual textual tips as well. And this content can be updated on an regular basis. We're putting out new content every month, not necessarily for every industry, but that's something that certainly could be done. Again, if incentives change for a particular industry or a particular program, all that stuff can be updated on an as-needed basis. And again, really kind of just setting the stage as a tool for you that even if you don't have the information to segment an existing customer base doesn't mean that you can't. And using a self-segmentation tool like this is really an opportunity to start that effort for a pretty reasonable cost and a reasonable way to really just start that conversation. So I'm going to hop back into the presentation now. So back in the presentation, again, this is specific, obviously, to Power Your Business. This is part of our sales deck, typically for Power Your Business, in terms of what you can customize. But again, I want you to think of it more in terms of if I had a self-segmentation tool for whatever area of customers that I'm targeting, how could I envision using that, in that space? And again, we have 10 here. It could be 2, it could be 25, depending on what makes sense for you and what makes sense for, what you're trying to target and what you're trying to accomplish. And I guess I ripped through that pretty quick today. This is kind of the last poll question. Really want to get an idea of what you consider success on the business side in communicating with your customers. What are the big initiatives? What would really move the needle for you with your business customers in that communication? And what help would you be looking for in terms of doing that? Is it content related? Is it segmentation strategy? Is it actual implementation of segmentation strategy or communication planning? And what that looks like for your particular utility and your particular business community and how you're trying to achieve that. So really, I guess this was a pretty quick webinar today. I did think it would take a little bit longer. I think I talked faster because I'm worried about coughing. So I tried to get through it pretty quick. Oh wait, sorry. I thought I was on a different slide. We do have a few left to go. Again, each one of those pages, and this is something that is really part of the content marketing strategy as a whole, is that you do need to have a depth of content to continue that conversation with each industry. And that's really where, a partner like Questline with our library can really bring that to bear and help, is that, it can't just be a one-off video or a one-off, infographic or quiz. It needs to be a continual strategic approach to building that relationship and providing them that information that they need on an ongoing basis. In order to launch a program like this, because it is a self-segmentation tool, you really do want to drive a lot of traffic to it. So we did build a full kind of product campaign around this. Again, in this particular instance, it's all branded for Power Your Business, but obviously all that's customizable. But again, if you're going to launch a self-segmentation strategy, it really is important to drive as many of your customers into the top of that funnel. So it really is going even as far as bill inserts, banner ads on your website, hooks off of any sort of business, business page on your website where they may be going already. Certainly emails out to your business customers to really try and drive them into this segmentation tool. But again, there's an opportunity there for you to use, surveys instead of maybe building out a full segmentation tool like this to really try and get to know more about your customers, even if you don't have that data to segment them the way you want to. Segmenting them in any way, shape, or form by having them do it themselves and help you is still a big step in the right direction for you to reach your goals. And really, that's kind of what today is more about. It's to get you started and give you examples of, even if you don't have the data that you need, you can still do something to try and get them more targeted, more helpful, more realistic content targeted for their particular area of what they're looking for. So we do have if you're interested in being contacted around content marketing strategy, customer segmentation strategy, and in particular Power Your Business, please let us know. We would love to follow up with you, in any of those areas and help you achieve your goals and your utility goals. So again, really the key takeaways are content marketing and segmentation strategy really should be the backbone of your digital communication strategy with your customers. And it really is that opportunity for you to get as much targeted, helpful information to them as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And it isn't just an individual program promotion email or an energy efficiency email or an outage report email. It really is building that overall strategy of how do you want to engage with them on a consistent and systematic and strategic level, and having the content and the strategy behind it to do that. And again, if you don't have the data to start segmenting now, let your customers do it for you, and at least start to move in the right direction and start to have those much more individualized and personalized questions. But Power Your Business, it really is, a flag in the ground, an example of how we can help you do some of that segmentation, certainly implemented for the small business audience here, but really serves as an example of a way to start that segmentation conversation with any potential customer base that you may want to target. So again, appreciate your time today. Pretty quick today. But I do think that it's an important topic. I think this is a good example with Power Your Business of a really easy way to get started and to start that process of segmenting your data, of starting that process of having those more tactical and more targeted conversations with your customers. So hopefully you took at least a few nuggets out of that today, and we would certainly love to have more conversations with you in the future around that. So if there are any questions, please put them into the portal. Happy to answer them. And as Levi said, the deck will be out there as well. And I don't believe I put one of the 5 ways to save videos up, but we will do that before we send out the link so that you can have an example of one of those tip videos that was on an individual industry page for you to take a look at. So feel free to shoot over any questions. And if not, again, thank you very much for your time today. It was pretty quick today. The next one we're going to do in November is going to be a deeper dive on content in and of itself, the strategy of how we build some of the content and how we're actually curating collections of content and series of content and some of the performance metrics we have around, again, building that talent-customer relationship where we have video series with certain TV hosts that used to be on DIY channel and stuff like that, and how they have become some of our most sought-after content from the end customer, because again, they start to have a relationship with the characters that you have in your content, in addition to the brand and the utility, and they really find a lot of value and a lot of success with that kind of thematic or character-based content where they can build that relationship over time with the characters inside of the content as well. So we'll be doing that in November if you get the specific date, but emails will go out about that. And again, thank you very much for your time today, and happy to answer any questions you have. So we had one question come in, what is the ideal segment number? And that is kind of the question I get all the time. And it was funny, it was as part of the SECC research committee, there was even debate about what is kind of the optimal number by the true data people that were on the panel as well. Honestly, once you do get past really 4, maybe 6, it really does get hard to say, I have a unique enough message to split this group into 2, or to split these 2 groups into 3, which is usually kind of what happens a lot, is you'll have 2 segments with this kind of a middle group that you could almost pull out into a third. But remember, it is how unique does the message have to be to reach that group to drive them to a different behavior, but it's also, is there enough people in that group that it makes the overhead for that extra communication worth it, right? So when you're looking at a small business community, that certainly is a factor. If you're looking at residential, your segments can get a little bit deeper if you want, because there's a big enough population that, okay, if I pull out a sixth or a seventh, I'm still going to have 20,000, 30,000 people in that. But if I'm looking at an SMB population of maybe 1,500 to begin with, or whatever that number is, and I start slicing and dicing that, all right, am I going to split up a segment that might only have 500 or 1,000 or even a couple thousand people in it into two, and the extra overhead of those communications, running those programs separately or whatever, there's a bit of a law of diminishing returns at some point. So if you're looking at a bigger population like residential, it maybe makes more sense to go 6, maybe 8. If you're looking at a smaller population like key accounts or small business, does it make sense much going past 4 or 5? Maybe not. In a particular where we're looking at industries like we did here with Power Your Business, again, that's a little bit different. When you're looking at more like on residential, more personality kind of based things, or like what the demographics are or whatever, again, those populations are going to be a little bit easier and bigger. But we would easily have the targeted information and content here in the small business segments to warrant going to all the way up to 10 and even potentially past 10, because that content is a lot easier to develop because the lines are very clearly delineated. When you get into like demographic information and stuff like that, the lines aren't as clearly delimited, so it gets a little muddier in terms of what that content separation is going to look like. So it's worth it in the SMB side to go into more than you probably really should, because the content's easy to curate, and that's a big factor in it as well. All right, I don't see any other questions. Again, I really appreciate your time today. If there are any questions after the fact, my email address is on the presentation. And these actually, if you do submit something through the portal, these will sit up here and I'll go in and check them later today as well. And if not, thanks everybody. And hopefully we will talk soon in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Kurt. I would like to thank you all for attending our webinar today. As a reminder, presentation materials and the playback link to the recording of today's webinar will be emailed to you sometime within the next couple of days. If you have additional questions or feedback, please do not hesitate to contact us. Thanks again for attending, and have a great day, everyone.